Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the December 11th meeting of the Building Subcommittee. There is an attendance sheet going around. If you could just sign it to show that you are here. We have a quorum, so if you're a member of the committee, please sign that to show that you are in attendance so we can register who is here. The first item on the agenda is public comment, and looking out there, I don't see any members of the public, so unless someone walks in mid-meeting, we don't have any public comment. The next item is selection of the co-chair, chair and co-chair per the school committee policy, which I'll turn over to the superintendent, Superintendent Duba.
Okay, thank you. So this item is on the agenda for this meeting. So we just had our biennial school committee meeting. At that meeting, we always have the selection of school committee members to be placed on the advisory committee meetings, and that was just done. So Rob Case and Megan Riley are our school committee reps. So thank you. Rob is returning, and Megan, welcome aboard. And we also have a school committee policy, and we always want to make sure we're following our policies. School committee policy on advisory committees that states in that policy under section 5, letter A, that the leadership of the advisory committees are made up by one, a district administrator representative, and two, by one of the school committee representatives. And we've known that when this committee was put together, it was being represented by a superintendent and by the town manager. I will say, my experience from my previous district, that is how we did it as well. But there is so there's no offense against you or anything or anyone. We have a very good relationship, and we will continue to work together as a school department and a town moving forward. And Ralph and I, we had this conversation, but we do have a school committee policy, and I do have to make sure that we are following that policy with all of our advisory committees. So that's why we are making that change tonight. But moving forward, there'll still be a lot of communication between the town and the school. We're very fortunate that Ralph is sitting on this board with us. Also, we do have a town council member as well who sits on this board, and we have other members from the town that are here as well. So that relationship and that continuity will still continue with this building committee.
If I may say something?
Yes.
Very quickly. So again, the superintendent and I have spoke on this. As in my prior experience also has been the superintendent and the mayor or the town manager as co-chair, but we've talked about this, and I think we'll be perfectly fine. We'll continue in constant communication. We'll assist whoever the co-chairs are, and so looking forward to whatever 2025 brings. Will be fine. I do want to just make one point with the two new members of the school committee on the building committee. In the past, when a school committee member couldn't show, a third school committee member would sit. And being that way of trying to stick to policies, I just want, if you're going to do that in the future, not you, but you plural, you may want to get a legal opinion on that, because that could be a rolling quorum, because you have 3 members sitting. So again, being that we're trying to stick to policy, I never said anything in the past, but I just think you may want to at least get a legal opinion on that, because if you can't make it or you can't make it and someone sits, that is now a majority of the school committee that has sat on this committee, and that could be a rolling quorum. So just be careful on that. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So with everything that we did state, we will make nominations for the chairs of the committee. So we'll make a nomination for the district administrative rep, and then we'll make a nomination for the school committee rep. Once we make that nomination, I'll open it up for discussion, and then we'll vote. Are there any nominations that anyone would like to make moving forward for the district administrative rep? I have a nomination for someone, but is there anyone else that wants to put a nomination out there before? I'd like to nominate Chris Murphy, who is our Director of School Facilities and School Safety, as one of the chairs of this board. Chris has stepped on recently. He has a lot of experience from previous in his district of doing work like this, and as the Director of Facilities, I think it's important that he's involved. I know I was chairing it previously. I was like Ralph, being very involved in this process, but it is also always nice to be able to have someone else that's doing this work alongside with me. So I'd like to nominate Chris Murphy as one of the chairs of the committee. I'll open that up for discussion if anyone has anything they want to state.
Second.
discussion? No. Chris, would you like to say anything, or?
Yeah, just a brief note for anybody that I haven't met before or haven't spoken with at any length. I joined the East Providence staff as the director of plant maintenance for the new high school there. Stepped in when that high school was about halfway built. So I have the experience that I bring with me from the construction of that new high school that I suppose everybody is familiar with. And the processes and procedures that led up to they're starting their new Martin Middle School as well, which is another, I think it's a 280,000 square foot middle school that they're renovating up there. So I do have that experience, and I have sat on their building committee as well during my tenure there, my 4.5 years, and look forward to bringing what I learned there to benefit here. So.
Thank you. So, anyone else would like to use? Okay. So I'd like to call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Anyone sustained? Okay. Well, Chris, you are.
Thank you very much.
Now one of the chairs. So congratulations. Next, we will need a nomination for who will be the school committee rep. I am going to sustain myself because the school committee is my boss. I don't think it's appropriate for me to make a nomination and choose over one or the other. So I am looking for a nomination from the committee to put forward a nomination for a representative of one of the school committee members to be the co-chair with Chris.
I'll nominate Rob Case.
Okay, open that up for discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I self-nominate, or
You can.
like, so what happens first?
So we have to have a discussion first,
Okay.
but anyone can discuss and make.
Okay,
So,
so would now be the time?
yes. I'd like to say you can.
So as confident as I believe Rob would be, I would like to also potentially be put into consideration. I am a recent school committee elected official, but I have been very heavily involved in this process. I'm a parent and I sub in the district, and I've been coming to these meetings, and if I can't attend, I watch them thoroughly, and I've really made myself very aware of all of the policies, the procedures, what's going on over at RIDE. And I also believe I have the ear of the community. I've gone out of my way to speak to community members and hold my own little meetings where they were open to the public at the library the last couple years, and I've really tried hard to learn this process, and I'm very invested in this committee. This is actually the top committee I really wanted to get on, and so if Rob is not voted in, and if he feels like he has too much on his plate, or if he is voted in and feels like he has too much on his plate, being the vice chair and sitting on several other advisory committees. I myself am only on one other advisory committee, and I certainly have the time and the bandwidth, and I would like to also be considered.
Discussion?
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking of this, so, and I don't want to speak for you, Chris, but Chris may have made that motion not knowing that maybe you did, not knowing that both of you were interested. And I say that because I believe, and please confirm this, that the school committee may approve his contract.
That is correct.
And if that is true, then it may be to your benefit to abstain also.
Understood.
And I'm saying that for you. I'm not questioning, you didn't know, you may not have known that both of them were candidates, so, and so that's really not fair to you, you probably were just moving forward on what you thought was right, and now that I know they approved your contract, I wanna put you in that position, so.
I might be in the same position.
Yeah, I realize that, so they
Yeah,
approve
yeah, 'cause
So,
principals as well.
Can anyone nominate?
principal's contract, yeah,
I didn't realize that,
yeah,
they approve principals as well.
right.
they do a contract.
The contract.
Yes,
And
yes, so it is.
Rob?
Yeah, so do we wanna maybe withdraw the motion and then start over, or?
I would like to withdraw my nomination.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I will withdraw my second.
So,
That's a good point, Ralph. Thank
no,
you.
I'm trying to,
No.
and you didn't know when you had no idea that both of them were interested, so.
Okay, so the motion's off.
Motion's off the table.
Okay.
So we need a new nomination for the school committee representative, sorry.
So is there anything that you would like to have words about, or are you interested in the position?
Can we discuss
So
without a
we
motion?
can't discuss without a motion.
Yeah.
So we just take,
So like, can I say motion to discuss, and then Rob discusses, or just?
no, we have to put another nomination.
Oh,
We have
we
to
haven't
put
done that
another
yet.
motion out there.
I forgot.
So while this may sound a little crazy, I'll throw it out there anyway, so someone could make a motion to nominate both of them with a second, and that could open up discussion.
Yes. Or one of them you could also nominate yourself.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yes, just like on the school committee, you nominate.
Okay, I nominate myself.
I did not know that.
Get this moving.
Okay, so
I'll make a
motion-
nomination to know, for both of them, because I think the two of them could work together. Could work together, and get this thing done. Because this is a very important process to get done. And instead of haggling around and just as the two heads together, and you guys, I know you have a lot on your plate with all the stuff going on. So hopefully the two of you can get together and, we meet a couple of times, 3 or 4 times a year or whatever, and probably be meeting a lot more with what's going on now, but I make a motion they both become a team.
Okay, so we had one nomination though first, so we had a motion to nominate, you nominate yourself, do you wanna remove the motion?
To make it easier.
Yeah.
Yes, I will remove, I will.
Okay. So, a new motion on the table to nominate both, Megan and Rob to share that other role, and I'll open that up for discussion.
So
Do I have a
discussion on the
Do I have a
motion, there'll
second
be,
to open up for discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay.
so there will be 3 chairs.
So it would be, there would be, yes, it would be a district rep and then shared between the 2 members. All I will add, if one person's out, we know the other person's stepping in. So that also could be helpful for the committee as well, so that way if for some reason Rob, you're not here, Megan sits in as chair, if Megan, you're for some reason you're not here, Rob sits in as chair. I don't think there's anything that limits us, to that happening.
But again, for the discussion, I just want to, as one member of the committee, I want to emphasize the fact that if one of you can't make it, I think it's even more important now that a member of the school committee doesn't sit in as a
Right.
chair. So just my one opinion, and I also think it could be a
We
role
need to have
for-
just these 2 members. Yes. Yep, very true.
So while I think that's a very unique situation, I have confidence that it could work, so I believe that motion has not been seconded, so I will second that motion.
And one,
Yeah, Rob-
I seconded it just to
I
get.
thought you said.
Just because-
Hey, wait.
No.
Yeah, Rob seconds, so we can have the discussion.
Yeah, just to get it, yeah.
and you're both comfortable with that?
I mean, I guess, I've been here from the very beginning, and in support of doing the work that needs to be done with the facilities. I've sat on this committee since the very beginning. And then, so if the committee's comfortable with that solution, then, it's up to the committee, it's at the will of the committee.
Thank you. So we're looking for a second on the dual role.
So,
We have
We already
a,
have
so
that.
we have a second, so we'll move to, a vote. And all in favor of the nomination for both Rob and Megan to share that role as co-chair? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And all and anyone.
Four.
And-
4 abstentions, right?
and- abstain.
4 abstentions.
Yes. So that vote passes because there were no nays. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, okay.
And again, just to, so I'm not, after the vote, I'm sure you can continue to discuss. My suggestion to the 3 of you would be, and it's only a suggestion as one member of the committee and someone who's probably been doing this for way too long, is you may, I think, having 2 school committee members, I think, is an asset. But you may want Chris to take the lead as chair and the 2 of you sit beside him. And then please know you have Kenny and myself as any kind of assistance that you may need, and we'll be in constant contact, but it just may function smooth, but that's just my suggestion as a committee member. But I think it's gonna be great, it'll be unique, but didn't really think of that coming in, so I think it's gonna work out just fine.
Well, I think it's a unique part of the policy, so.
Yes.
So, while we're discussing this point, I'll just kind of share out that with the agendas of how we've typically have created the agendas, it was a shared role, between the, those that are chairing, but also part of creating the agenda is working with the project team of what needs to go on there. So I think, we've just kind of opened up the voices of creating that agenda. And I think, that is something, we can talk about later as well, but we've always have consulted with each other, with Inga and Perkins prior to our project meetings of what needs to go on there. So Chris will do that and then bring stuff and share with you before we get it posted.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So we're actually we don't have to move, there's no nameplates or anything, but we'll hand over the rest of the meeting and going through this agenda to Chris and Megan and Rob.
Very good. Charlie?
If you have questions about running the meeting, we're here. So.
Okay, very good. There being no further discussion, and we agreed upon, we three, I'd be happy to run the meeting going forward, and we just discuss how that will unroll from here on out.
Sure.
Okay, very
Sounds
good.
good.
Super. Let's see, so that wraps up item number 3 on our agenda. Item number 4, approve previous meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve previous meeting minutes from November 6, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, or that's it?
We can if we need to, if there's any
Okay.
discussion. But
Any discussion?
typically,
Okay, that'll be the easiest thing we do.
and then we just gotta vote on it.
I have a quick question before the
yes.
vote. Since I was not a member, do I need to abstain?
I would.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
I wasn't here.
And you weren't here.
All in favor of approving last meeting's minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Yes.
2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Moving right along. Item number 5, update on RIDE, school building A?
School Building Authority.
Authority, thank you. School Building Authority comments, meetings, and next steps. Who is here to talk about the demographic? Is that?
Well, or just want to
So you want
provide
to
the
do a
updates.
quick recap first, or should I do everything? Because we haven't met since before, right? Do you want me to go over?
Yeah, I mean, either you or it doesn't matter. I can provide that. So, excuse me. So, the project team, which is, myself, Chris, Rob, and, well, really, we're part of the administrative team, the project team with Inga and Perkins. We had a meeting with RIDE, it was a week ago, right? Was it last Monday?
December
I'm trying to
2nd,
think. These weeks are like going by fast. So that was last Monday. We went up to RIDE to meet with members of the school building authorities. It's Dr. Silva, Keely Cantor, and Brian LeMay to discuss the feedback that they provided to us with the comments and everything that we need to respond back to them with on the stage 2 application. The purpose of that meeting was for us to come together to be able to look at the design of the new Whitby Middle School building that Perkins is working on, as well as to answer any questions they have and to kind of leave there with the to-do list, put it that way. A lot of the conversation went around the setup of the building, questions they had on the square footage of the building, what could we do to maybe make the building smaller, looking at other ways to use the building, looking at where classrooms are placed, setups of the gym, the cafeteria, some of what we will get into after in the next portion of our meeting, as well as looking at how many students are going into the building. Should we look at increasing the enrollment for that building? Right now we have it set for 400. Would we consider putting more students in that building versus how many students are at Davisville Middle School? They did keep referring back to the original master facility plan of one consolidated school versus the 2. They discussed the difference of team teaching versus not having team teaching currently at Whitford Middle because of the size and the number of students. We don't have a team teaching model there. Looking at having 400 students for that year, we wouldn't have a team teaching method at every grade level either. It would be kind of like a team and a half split. So they wanted us to kind of relook at that as well as we go forward in this process. And they also asked if we can get an updated demographic study. They wanted us to relook at that and make sure that we have all of the updated information regarding new builds in town, which was part already of what we submitted. But they did ask us to reconsider that because they want us to see if we can put more students in that building as well. And we are going through all those comments. They did tell us that they want us to wait till February to submit, not December, because of the additional information that they're asking us to give them. So we will resubmit in February, so that means that our approval will happen in May, not earlier in, it would have been December. And that's okay. We looked at the timeline. It's not going to cause any huge impact on us. We went through the timeline of the building in the middle school and when we even had that set to do all of that work. We are working with them regarding the capital improvement plan projects, so we can still start some of those projects over the summertime like planned. But it's not gonna have a huge impact on our timeline by waiting the 6 months difference, because that's what it would be with that. But that is, it's what they've told us we have to do. So we gotta work with them. They also wanna work with us on a positive. They wanna make sure that we can get the most reimbursement back for the town, right? And that's what we want to. And that was something I said as superintendent. You know, we want to make sure that we are getting the most reimbursement back. We know what we'll get on the capital improvement projects, but also with the building and what the allowable is. So they're working with us as well, and that's why they're requesting some of this additional information, so they can come back and say, here, we can actually give you more of a reimbursement than what, you know, we're looking at now. So.
I can add a little bit more. So the cost per square foot number will go up starting the next phase, so starting
So
in 2025.
the reimbursable, right? So not
Reimbursable,
the
yes.
cost per square foot
I'm
on
sorry,
our
yes, the
construction.
reimbursable.
Our cost,
They allow-
Perkins is not increasing, let's make it clear.
No, I'm sorry,
Perkins
I'm
is not
thinking-
increasing the cost.
I did not say
Right, so,
correctly.
so what we were told from RIDE is that through, legislation, every year they increase the reimbursement rate on the per square footage, and so that's increasing as well, so that was another reason why they told us to wait, because this way that increases our reimbursement as well.
It is 592 a square foot now, and they're anticipating at least a 3% possible increase. They don't know, they can't tell us, but it's definitely going to be closer to 600, maybe a little more, maybe less. I don't know, I don't have the
Yeah,
information.
we don't know what
but-
that increase is.
Right, but at least it gives the ability to utilize that. Also, they're allowing us to continue design on CIP projects that we anticipate to do to start right away, say in the summertime. So we had a list, Chris and I met and had a list proposed. We can discuss that list today. I think it's on the agenda. But there is a list of projects that we can potentially advance, and they're allowing us to advance it along the way at the same time as the stage 2 being reviewed. Basically, there'll be all the approvals can be in place, bids can go out, design can finish. You cannot start the projects without stage 2 approval, but everything else can be done and ready. So that comes June, when those projects would start, we would have everything ready to go, so.
And that's a whole lot of footwork that we have the ability to do right now to position ourselves well for June. You know, among the projects that we select are some quick hitters, some heavy lifts too, though, so.
Yeah.
Anything else, Inga?
No, not for this item.
Very good. Next item, letter B, the education program charrette. That's pretty much what we just talked about, correct?
Yeah, so.
Or do you have anything else?
Well, what they wanted to do a charrette with us, and which is a very formal name of saying, let's all get in the room and let's look at the design. We did some of that, a lot more was the conversation that I said, things that they were asking us to do and bringing forward, and more backup information they would like around the demographics, to how we can increase students, and and then looking at placement of classrooms. So we didn't get into a whole lot of really kind of talking together. They gave us a few recommendations. One other thing I want to add, we are, when I say we, Chris and I are going to Providence with Brian LeMay to look at one of the schools that they just built, just to get some ideas and to look at layouts. It's always helpful to look at other new buildings that have been done. It's the same, it's a little bit bigger square footage wise. I think it's like the building's like 80, I don't know what the number was it?
80-something
Yeah,
thousand
it was
square
just,
feet.
yeah, it was just a little bit bigger than what our plan is for Whitford Middle School. So it's about the same size, and they want us to go look at that. So Chris and I are meeting Brian LeMay down there on Friday
the difference though, there is very little site of that building. The building is in Providence. All Providence buildings have very limited site work. The footprint is a lot smaller, and that sometimes helps the cost per square foot of those buildings in Providence versus some other buildings like the other districts. And also, it is an elementary school, not a middle school, so there's a little bit difference there as well, but I think it's worth seeing, so.
Any further discussion? Okay, that taking no vote, we'll move on to item number 6. New Wickford Middle School Educational Program Design. This is a group activity brought to us today. Am I right?
Yes.
Our day by our friends from Perkins Eastman.
So if I can just kind of maybe give us some background of why we're doing a group activity. We had some conversations, and honestly, I don't feel like we're really using this committee like we can. I think all of you were selected on this committee prior to me coming in as superintendent. You are all here for specific reasons because you have expertise in your area of work, or it might be within just being a community member. And you're here to advise us. And a lot of our meetings, we're providing updates and all, and we're not doing enough work at the meeting. So I had asked Perkins, can you please put something together? So we have to look at the design, but you don't want it just to be a presentation. Nope, not for them, but I just would like us to do more work of all of you looking at it. We have engineers, we have architects on here, we have people from the town, we have educators, and I think we really can kind of look at this for suggestions of the building and what we need to do more moving forward. So I asked for them to put together some type of, more of a work session for us for tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's do a quick recap, because it's
Yes.
been a month or two since we've all seen this, seen the plan and gone through it. So I'll be really quick before we break up. Just as a refresher, a lot of drivers, like that kind of led us to where we are, being efficient design. We talk a lot about the cost of square foot and the cost of this building. And from day one, we know that the economy and the cost of construction. So what we have before you is a pretty darn efficient plan that still meets all the needs of the school. It's a high performance building, which is great. Net zero, you guys are kind of pioneers here, which is fantastic. The school is as a teaching tool for the community, for the students, something that everyone can be really proud of. Accessibility, looking at your existing school now, the entire building obviously is going to be accessible building and site. Natural light, universal design, 21st century, all these good things that we've talked about over the months have kind of come together and gelled into this building. Building organization, you know very, very well now, is organized by this main spine, which we really kind of call the heart of the school. All your public spaces are really from here down, at the front of the school, at the front door, with your cafeteria, your gym, your music, your media center, tech and coding, this education on display. And we're gonna look at a couple images, precedent images of projects of ours. We weren't quite there yet in the project, showing you what these spaces look like. Right now they're kind of simple boxes, but we see a lot of visual connectivity, breakout spaces, collaboration spaces, those types of things, and that's kind of really the next step. And hopefully those will trigger some thoughts when we're in the group. And then you have your private side, your academic spaces, academic neighborhoods, which are your two-story portions of the building. And a couple comments that we heard from our charrette with RIDE. The way we designed it, again, very efficient, you have your academic neighborhoods on either side, and then a shared commons at the middle. These aren't terribly long, these are short wings. So you have a breakout commons space at the end of the quarter with great natural light and views where students can come together before and after class, and even during class to utilize the space. And then you have a little more grand kind of commons space that we're going to develop, which happens in your public zone on the ground floor. What we heard from RIDE was that they would love for us to incorporate even more, which is great. I think, in the middle of these academic neighborhoods, create a little leisure space that teachers and students can use. So it's really central to this neighborhood, right? And we'll show you a couple images. And that doesn't mean it's a lot of square footage. You can do a lot with a little bit of space, which you'll see in the next couple slides. Something else that we're going to look at, that kind of goes along with what Dr. Duva was talking about. He's going to go take a visit Providence and take a look at the relationship between the gym and the cafeteria. I guess they have more of a physical connection, so they can open up and communicate and share, be more efficient. But we're also gonna look at what happens if we eliminate this corridor. Now's the time, right? We're gonna incorporate some of Ride's comments, and we're gonna take, revisiting the plan. So if we can find more efficiencies and make the building a little bit smaller without making any sacrifices to how the building works, now's the time to do it, right? So we're gonna take a look at what happens if we eliminate this corridor, move PE down to this, move PE down, utilize this corridor and have direct access from the PE spaces directly into the gym. You can, we can take a look at that, see if we can save, 500 to 1,000 square feet would be fantastic. So those are the types of things we're gonna look at.
I just ask you a question on that light blue area there,
Of course.
the light blue area below the gym.
Mhm.
Is that like an auditorium? No, the light, no.
Further
yeah,
left.
Oh, this over here?
right there.
Yep.
I see like,
Okay, good zoom in.
what, is that like an auditorium situation?
Those are the
Not
music.
an auditorium.
A music space.
Music and
Those are
choral?
music
How
classrooms.
big is something like that they could be turned into an auditorium, or would be something like that, or a theater, or?
So that's what we're using the cafeteria for. So this is a good refresher. So the cafeteria, right here, it's shown as a performance, setting, seating here with, I think, 200 seats plus or minus. But they have a permanent platform built in, so this will serve as your performance
During the
space.
stage?
Yep. The stage, it's a permanent built-in stage currently. There's accessibility with a ramp, permanent ramp, which takes you up onto the stage and a few steps. And there's a storage room which can accommodate all these chairs in the storage room, and then the lunch tables will come out.
And the music and choral would actually fit like a band, if you got like a school band, I know they have a school band.
Yeah, exactly.
So with choral, you could have music, or,
Exactly.
okay, not just, I'm impressed, I like that.
Yeah, I think to revisit it, but approximately 50 students is usually our target, plus or minus for a choral room.
Mhm.
And same thing with music. Music's a little larger for to accommodate instruments, and then a storage room directly between them. And they're isolated away from the core academics intentionally, so you have no acoustic issues there. Worked out pretty well. Site plan. I think we all know this very well, fairly well. The existing school sits over here currently. Nice athletic complex being developed here with a multi-use baseball field, softball kind of renovated in place. Improving the site with nice separation of parent and bus. Right now everyone kind of comes in one way and exits one way. So we're still entering here with a parent drop, entering off of Tower Hill with a bus, with an emergency drive around the school. And then we threw these in here just as a refresher. Again, we're trying to, we know where you're in your historic neighborhood, beautiful village, and the building should feel like it's part of the neighborhood and shouldn't compete. So, we're especially on Tower Hill Road, in public views, we're trying to think it was conscious to break the scale down and come up with a familiar vernacular, this end gable of a gabled roof. I think it contributes nicely, hopefully. Everyone agrees it contributes nicely to the context of the neighborhood, and it fits well with the residential scale buildings down the street. And then again, this is something we'll continue to develop as we move forward.
Traffic flow mainly from Tower Hill Road or from the other way?
Yeah, so let's go back. Okay, there we go. Yep. So the view we were just looking at was off Tower Hill. So all vehicles, all cars, dropping off. So the queuing in the morning and in the afternoon, they'll come in, queue up,
So they don't have to be in Tower Hill Road?
and exit off.
There were some recommendations for us to relook at changes.
We're gonna look at that. We're not, so, we're asking, it was an effort to save some cost savings. This was part of the design charrette, with Ride, was they're questioning,
That intersection's tough.
they're questioning the location of this, close to the intersection. We know there's some grade challenges, kind of getting from the street
It's
down
only,
to
it's
the
only
site.
a two-lane road there, Tower Hill. The two-lane road in that area,
They asked us to relook at the drive that's between the middle school and the field, and if we could use that in any way for that kind of more of a flow of the entrance and the exit. Right now, we have that as an emergency access. They asked if we maybe reconsider and look at that differently.
I have a question about the general process of the design. So I obviously know that you've been speaking with Ride. And I know that we open this up to public comment and people can contribute. Is there a process going forward where there's going to be more public input asked for in terms of the design? Off the top of my head as a teacher, I'm thinking about two specific things. The outdoor learning and the common space area. And I'm just wondering how much input we're asking for from our teachers specifically, the staff in the building. The first thing, that's always just, I just kind of want to learn more about it because maybe I don't understand. But I'm thinking we live in New England, you know, considering this weather right now, where it's like, we're not like down in Florida where outdoor learning is, you know, a 9 month of the year kind of thing. I'm just wondering in terms of cost savings, how efficient it's going to be, how much it's going to get used. I consider what happened, you know, over at DMS, the outdoor learning space is kind of no longer.
We're working on that.
Okay, no, that's great, that's great. I just wanna know the teacher input, the staff input, is it, like, how imperative is it, right? We
So-
have needs versus
Yeah,
wants.
so I mean, I can jump into the answer to that, but, so we will be setting up more meetings, and at one of our last meetings, we covered like kind of that January, February phase of bringing other people into this. And I'm just gonna kind of repeat a comment that was made at this meeting, with Ryan. They would, and it just might help everyone, they basically said, think of stage 2 as your request for your money, your funds. Right, you're coming to us with stage 2, we ask for a design, we know the design is gonna be changed, probably, you know, it's gonna go through different transitions as you go through this process from stage 2 to stage 3. Your stage 2 is basically your request for us to approve your funds, your fund requests. And as you go from stage 2 to stage 3, that's where design will change, but the design has to stay within the budget you set.
Okay.
Okay, so moving forward, there will be those additional meetings where we're gonna, separate from here, but bringing stuff back in, so we're going to be bringing in, you know, staff from the buildings, people from the community, right? We talked about making sure members from CLAC, along with our special ed department, are looking at certain things. Having our police and fire coming back again, even though we met with them, to relook at some of this and take in some of the recommendations from RIDE. So all that will happen, you know,
Okay.
at a future date, which originally we said January, February. It might be a little bit later now just because they've asked us to resubmit in February, not right now, but it still will be around that time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and the other thing, the common space, I'm just thinking as a teacher. So it's different when you're in high school and you have got the older kids and they're more responsible.
Right.
But I'm thinking a bunch of middle schoolers in a, you know, in their free period or what, you know, I know they don't really have free periods, but left alone in this common space, there has to be adult supervision. Then you have to take a teacher out, what, you know, during their prep periods, you know, how does that operate? How do you,
Yep.
you know, where does the supervision come from? And are the teachers happy about that or not?
Yeah, and believe me, we're well aware of it.
Okay.
And it's something, these are spaces that are often asked for. So we intentionally located, you know, one at the center, directly across from a faculty room, right? And on axis, so all eyes are always on them. And we'll show you a couple images in 1 second about introducing a new, smaller one, where kids can't really, there's no really corners you can hide behind.
Can I also kind of jump in? So the common space isn't for students to go there by themselves either. So the purpose of the common space is so that you could have more integration between your content areas and giving them spaces of where they can go and learn.
Okay.
Another new
Okay.
build that happened, and I know Inga was part of this, was Garden City, I'm blanking on the name of the school.
Eden Park?
Eden Park, thank you. Eden Park has a very creative, unique setup. When I was in Jamestown, we went to go look at it, see if we could model it in some way when we were doing some work at our schools. And they have it set with the collaborative space where it's in the center of where the classrooms are. And it's set where teachers don't have their individual classrooms. The classrooms are shared. But there's enclosed spaces where you can go teach math or ELA or science. But the middle is all open, and then it leads into like a library space, and it's all open space. So that way, multiple classrooms can come together, and you can have your math and science if they were doing something together, or ELA. And so it's really more common spaces so that you're able to bring larger groups together, not so much for kids just to go work on their own.
Okay, that's a helpful definition because, you know, when I think of common space, I think of high school and you're just, you know, the lounge, the senior area, whatever. So, okay, thank you.
So Learning Commons also something that RIDE incorporated, modeling after Eden Park, and what Cranston is doing, that this is their third school they're building, actually, Gladstone. And modeling after that, and also Providence took some of that as well. And they incorporated it into their 21st century learning requirements and educational programming. So what Cranston, those schools like Eden Park, like Garden City, they're not necessarily for every district. There's a lot that buy-in that goes into that, but some of those aspects can be incorporated, and those spaces are used for teaching an experience is not for like the hanging out.
Right, okay. Thank you.
But we can clarify that too, because maybe public, when people hear that or see that, we live it, we kind of know, right? So, but they don't. So
Right.
maybe it makes sense for us to better identify it, or better explain it.
And those are conversations we'll have when we bring other people in to look
Yes.
and talk to the educators, like, is this space, will this work for you?
Right,
Is that going to?
right. I think that's really important, yeah.
And these are just some examples, just to show that it doesn't have to take a lot of space, area, square footage to create, niches and places for breakout and collaboration zones. And also, we're always very sensitive of bringing natural light and creating views, and at the ends of corridors, short corridors, bringing natural light and views into the space. And this is one that was just completed. Creative, incorporating something, breakout space into a window. I love this image. And then you're talking about supervision, eyes on, carefully located across from classrooms. So a teacher, even if it's not, their class, they can have eyes on this space. So passive supervision of these spaces. And then the ends of corridors can even be used as commons breakout spaces. I think I mentioned that the first floor, the big elongated, call it commons, but it's really the heart of the school. And that visual connectivity between your media center, your learning commons, and your tech spaces. And do they open up into the corridor? So there's a lot of design. We're still really early in design, so all these conversations we had. So when we really dig into it, we can have more conversations and how these spaces react to each other. Who wants to get into this?
That's a big math problem.
Do we want to?
You just Reader's Digest.
I would just read some.
Yeah, just number of classrooms and.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just showing the breakdown of how many classroom spaces we will have in the building, and this is what Ryan wants us to kind of really look at, and can we increase it in any way? And so part of the work we're doing is seeing, okay, well, can we make other spaces smaller or move, within the gymnasium and where the locker rooms are, and shifting certain things to gain more classroom space if that's the direction we want to go in. But basically, we're looking at, if you have 450 students, how many students would be on a team? And so you divide that out. And so what you see is the number of classrooms. Per contract, you can only have 25 students in a class. You can have 100 students on a team. And we have to work with what the square footage is of the room and how many students, but also what our contract language is as well. So that would be, 100 students on a team, 25 students in a class. I know looking at, there's 125 here, but we'd have to look at it, if you do it just because there's 4, 5, 6 classrooms right there, you get 25 in each, so you got 150 at 6th grade, right? So that wouldn't be one team, so you'd have to split that. And then 7th grade, you have, I can't see right now, again, it's 150, right? Yeah, so we got 150 right now at each grade level.
So let me ask,
And that would, yes.
I'm sorry, so, it sounds like and we've had some conversations, it sounds like in your conversations with RIDE, they're looking to have more students take advantage of the new school.
They're looking at increasing the number of students that are going there, so that way we can also have more of a reimbursement, right? So they base the reimbursement by the size of your building, how many students are in the building, their usage, what do you have for special education programming, all of that goes into their formula of here is what the allowable cost is.
So while that makes sense in a number of ways, both on their end and also the number of students who benefit from the new school, et cetera, how many students do we have in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade right now in North Kingstown?
So right now, I don't have that number.
Rough.
Right, so I
340
would
plus
say,
470.
yes.
So 810?
So like 800.
So 810?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if we were at 810, as superintendent, what's your concern about having a school with 450 and a school with 360?
So,
Because that concerns me.
yeah, so
But-
what we would look at doing if having more students, the other factor is that would be currently, if we look at currently, and that we talked about, like currently, look at our current number, we're taking more students out of Davis, right?
Right,
And
right.
we're also in the midst of a conversation, last night we had our first reconfiguration. not reconfiguration.
Redistricting.
Redistricting, it is a reconfiguration, but redistricting committee. And we're keeping in mind, as we do a redistricting at the elementary level, we also wanna keep students together as they move to middle school. Because right now, for Fishing Cove, some of those students go to Davisville, others go to Whitford. We don't want that to happen as we move forward. So we're also having to consider how many students we have at the elementary level, so these numbers all need to play out. As we take students away from Davisville, now you're opening up space. And the other, what Ryan had mentioned, the school building authority, that now gives you opportunity to reconfigure how you're using Davisville Middle School to add more collaborative common space. This is something, it's kind of like where Ride is right now at SBA. I did the same thing when I was in my previous district. Go forward, how are you adding more collaborative space and looking at how there's more integration? So that was the other thing, kind of we want you to consider, is that if you have less students going to Davisville Middle School, now you can relook at how you're designing that.
So there are multiple pros. I mean, the pros are more kids are getting taken advantage of a new school, reimbursement rates, kids at Fishing Cove aren't gonna be split up, more space at Dib, there's a ton of them. But I just need to hear from you as superintendent with your experience on the cons. So do you have a concern with taking Davisville Middle and going to 360 students when its brother or sister school has 450?
I would want to make sure that we are best utilizing the spaces we have. We also, in our projections, our projections are for the future, shows more students in the enrollment. And one of the things we're looking at too, with all of the new builds that are happening, how many more students are gonna be in the district? And that's part of the demographics that we have, right? So that there would be an increase. So as we're taking students away from one school, there may be even more students coming in. And what we do need to consider is that when you build a new school, you may have an increase of students now coming to your district or coming back to your district because they were at private schools. And now you have a brand new school, which offers other opportunities as well in a new building, that you may have families, well, we're not gonna go to a private school anymore, we're gonna go to we have a new building. So that will increase the number of students as well. So there will be, right, if we look at our future enrollment, I don't think the number will drop that into the 300s at Davisville when we look at our future projections. My con is I'm being very careful with this, cautious, right? I want to be cautious with us saying we're putting more students in and the impact it will have on Davisville. So I'm hesitant, but also being open-minded in what we can do between the two buildings.
I was just gonna add, that having two schools and having enrollment being a certain number, depending on on what we're having, and there's pros and cons to that, right? So having fewer students is in some ways good because it's a smaller setting, it's more personalized and familiar to kids. But that does sometimes present scheduling restrictions that you're faced with because simply there's not enough kids to necessarily run programs that you'd want to run, for example, like a teaming model, right? There's challenges there. Does it mean it can't be done? No, it doesn't mean it can't be done, but it has to be done a little bit more creatively. There has to be a lot of partnership with teachers, and there has to be understanding that, there's maybe gonna be some things that we have to sacrifice in favor of something else. There's more limitations that come with that just simply because there's fewer kids.
And that's exactly where I was going concern-wise, but I wanted to hear from the educators, because that's not my expertise. And so that's just one con that concerns me, is that becomes almost the school that's not really, I'm not gonna say the right words, but I'm gonna try, but it's just, they're not gonna get the benefits of the 450 student school. Because of just what you said, there are challenges when you don't have enough students there. When you don't, so I don't want all the, we have this new toy, and we don't want all the attention going there, and so I just,
And I think-
having a smaller population, of course, benefits you also, so there's pros and cons.
And I think that's some of the conversations we've had with the Department of Ed and also just amongst ourselves, is we are obviously really excited about building a new school. This is like a generational opportunity that we have that we're really excited about. And so as educators, what we go to immediately is how we can make sure that this new school that we're building is housing, programs and educational models that are like aligned to best practice. And so in the work of doing that, it's just one of those things where we have to work collaboratively and have conversations around how to make that work within the setting that we have. Making everything work both, from a design standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and also working within the staffing models that we have.
Because when I look at, and just to let you, so when I look at things like this, sitting in this chair, and again, I defer to the educators, when you were designing this school, 75% of my thought is, okay, how are we getting these suggestions into the middle school? And then the other 25% is, okay, that's a great idea, how do we get that at Davisville? And so, because we need to have equality, and so that's why I say, so as you're doing this, I'm saying, wait a minute, now we're putting more kids there, are we not gonna even try some of these innovative ideas of shared spaces? I mean, there's gotta be inexpensive ways to do this at Davisville as well. And so again, when you show this, I say, that looks great, and then I say, how can we do that there also? And so I get a little bit concerned when I saw this, well, actually not concerned, I'm excited about the fact that more students are gonna take advantage of the new school, but I wanna make sure that we're not providing more challenges at the school that's being left behind. So not left behind,
Just,
Who decides which student is gonna go to Wakefield?
but the school
Versus-
committee / school department doing through redistricting.
Yeah,
What
the
about the
redistricting.
parents?
population
I
and
remember,
demographics.
I recall talks about people having to drive from one end to the other of the city or of the town, and so you guys are gonna decide,
So-
you are going here, and you are going there, and the parents gonna go, did you do
So we're gonna base it on the elementary schools and where the elementary schools are located, right? So if you just kind of look at it now, and this is not set in stone, but when we were going back, looking at populations, numbers of students, and where the elementary schools are located, you would have Hamilton, Fishing Cove feeding into Wickford Middle School. And then you would have Stony Lane, Quidnesset, and Forest Park feeding into Davisville Middle School. With the redistricting that we're doing, right, and that we need to do, right, we have a heavy number of students down towards Hamilton's. We need to look at making that shift, and that was the discussion we started having last night, of neighborhoods shifting down from Hamilton to either Stony or Fishing Cove over to Quidnesset, some of Forest Park over to Quidnesset. Quidnesset is being underutilized right now with the number of students that are there. It's like 212 and the capacity is close to 300. Actually, it's more than that, but like we can fit like another 100, based on utilization, like another 100 students at Quidnesset. So making those shifts, and so now you're looking at the population and number of students you have at each building. What we really don't want to do is have another split where you have an elementary school split. So we'll be looking at, okay, what's the population, what's the capacity of the schools, and reaching 95% capacity at the schools, especially around Hamilton and Fishing Cove, right, if they're gonna feed into Wickford Middle School, and then looking at how many students can be there.
and I think the concern you were just maybe referring to about the distance might have been when we were discussing the consolidated middle school.
correct?
Right, so now we still have two middle schools now, so it's.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
but the parent that has the kid in Davidson Middle School all of a sudden find himself that he has to have a kid in the Wickford Middle School. Why do I have to go from here to there? What happened with that guy? What happened with this guy? And that is the kind of confrontation that I think that you're gonna find, that parents are gonna come back and say, whoa, wait a minute, who decided, why you decided this? It's very easy to say, I'm gonna redistrict this, and parents have a lot of things to say.
And we talked about that last night in our redistricting committee, like, what are some of the concerns that we need to consider about the transitioning of, a slow transition if we have a neighborhood of students and they're now not going to Hamilton and they're going to one of the other schools now, or, you know, Fishing Grove to Quinnesset, of how we transition that in. And, you know, we talked about making data-driven decisions, not decisions through emotion, because it is a emotional decision of when you're saying, we're going to make a switch of what school your children are going to, because you become heavily involved in those schools, especially at an elementary level, and being part of that, and then all of a sudden now we're moving you. But we have to make data-driven decisions and making the best use of our schools. And those elementary schools will eventually feed into the middle schools. And there'll be time, because as we're going through this and making these decisions, we're not making a change now to what middle school you're going to at least yet, but for the future.
And Ralph, to your point, so this might ease your mind a little bit, we may now have a different building, so a new building for some of the students and not for the others, but there's also been a history of programming and things offered at Davisville Middle School that haven't been necessarily offered at Wickford. So, for instance, I'm thinking like, you know, a robotics team or after school, like just, you know, math clubs, things like that. So, you know, it's really dynamic, it's really fluid what we're trying to do here, and I know Dr. Duva has the best interest of the students in mind and the staff to try to make things as equal as possible. But realistically, right, there are always going to be inequalities. I mean, we have 5 elementary buildings, right? If we go to redo one, do we have to do all 5? You know, that kind of thing. So you know, we're all gonna do the best we can, but there have always been discrepancies in the 2 middle schools, not just the buildings, the programming. I think one thing that is going to be beneficial coming from the new Wickford Middle School is that you will have the ability now to have teams. And for the pub, right, so Wickford has never had.
We're trying to.
Trying
It's
to?
not a given.
But
So,
it's something
because of the number
that
of students, we're
hopefully,
trying
right?
to look at, or a
That's-
team and a half. And
That's kind of what we were talking about. That's kind of one of the concerns we have, quite honestly, because teams are predicated on having a certain number of students per grade. And they become more challenging depending on the number. If the number's too low, again, with contract language being what it is sometimes, it's challenging to make it work. So we might have to get a little creative with that, you know, which we've already started having these conversations about how we can do that. But everything, there's a couple moving targets now, but the numbers we're talking about, you know, plus, you know, different ways we could do it. You know, there's a couple different ways we could possibly do it, but they would all require some kind of communication, some kind of, you know, like I said, look-see into what can we possibly do at the expense of something else. So,
Okay, thanks.
And just know, I know just you're coming from, and I agree 1,000%. As a matter of fact, I was one of the big proponents of 2 middle schools, so no doubt about it. And Wickford Middle School has had the bad end of it for many, many years. At the same time, though, fortunately, through great leadership, they also are a high-performing middle school.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that, you know, when it was 400, it was what it was. And so now we're saying we want to get more people to Wickford Middle School. That makes sense. I just want to make sure that, I want to hear from the school committee and the educators that, you know, we understand that, and we're going to make sure that we're putting some programs in Davisville to make sure that we're improving them as well. But I also think the superintendent makes a good point that with the new school, we're going to have an increased enrollment. So while maybe 810 right now, I mean, it could be 850, 860, but now all of a sudden you're looking at 450, 410. That's much more equal, so, and that'll provide some challenges to Davisville, I'm sure.
Right. And the reason why I'm saying being cautious, and Rob alluded to this, is that, you know, if we take kids away from Davisville, that's gonna impact the teaming model there.
That's
So
true, that is
We can't
true,
Band-Aid
right.
this, and this is what we tried
And that's
explaining,
what I'm
you know,
thinking.
at our meetings with SBA. It's like, we want to be careful with the decisions we're making, because, okay, fine, we fix it at one school, now it happens to the other school.
Right.
That's
Right,
right.
and that's why Wickford has always been a mixed model
Right.
of teachers being shared on a grade level because of the number of students. And we're trying to get that point across. Not here with all of you, but with the approval process with Brian.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We don't have to spend time on this. This just illustrates the thought process that accompanies the previous slide of how can we, within the existing architecture, how can we create those teaming houses within the school around those breakout spaces, those common spaces that we're talking about. So along with some of the stuff we're gonna kind of break into groups and talk about, along with taking a look at finding some efficiencies and how some of the building might come together, we're also looking at how do we, you know, adjust the location of some of these boxes and adjacencies within the academic wings to make a building, like you said, that works, right, for now, for the next 50 years. And with that, who wants to lead this? Mark? Tina? Not it?
So at first we thought we would try to make everybody draw building plans, but we thought that probably wasn't the best idea. So this is something maybe some of you have gone through some of these processes, if you've been through, you know, sort of engagement or strategic planning things, this SOAR idea of strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. So we put together a few questions, a few prompts. We thought everybody could kind of, we weren't sure how many people we'd have, whether we should break into groups or we can do this together, but I think Tina has some post-it pads that we can kind of write down some ideas about. But I think the nice thing about SOAR is that it's, if you've gone through these things, it's all very kind of positive, you know, and looking at everything in a very optimistic and sort of future-focused way. And I think it's important not to take too, you know, you don't have to be too specific about these questions, of more of an idea of a prompt, but in strengths, so 2 features of the design, as Mike went through that just now, that will enhance 21st century learning and wellness for the students, teachers, and administrators. You know, so 21st century learning has to do with, I mean, some of the things we're talking about on breakout, or students doing more teaming or more self-directed kind of work. Wellness, I think a lot of the design does have that, you know, has a variety of scale of spaces, has connections to outdoors, there's a lot of natural light, a lot of things that, and we don't get into sort of the acoustics and things, but a lot of things that a new design space and a net zero healthy building is gonna do in terms of wellness, environment for students and teachers and everyone in the building. Opportunities, so we had here two elements of the project that can be harnessed to serve the larger community. So I think that's the other thing that schools can do is they are a community facility, and beyond the school day can be used for other things. We certainly thought about that, Mike talked about that, and the way the building is divided into kind of public and private, so able to access those larger spaces like a cafeteria, auditorium, a gymnasium that can be used by the community, while the rest of the school can be secured or locked off for after hours. Aspirations, I think Tina was an author of this one, I think, but I think it's a nice idea of thinking of 10 years from now, reflecting on their experience. What would you hope to hear students or graduates, alumni say about their experience at the New Whitford Middle School? And then results. So a couple of thoughts about what would be measurements about how we could, you know, in a sort of post-occupancy sort of thinking, what would be those things that would let us know that that the building did have a positive impact on learning and on the community. So with that, I think we have.
Can I say something?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
We just have to be careful using spaces publicly, because if you utilize spaces for non-school events, then it's RIDE will flag it, it's not reimbursable. So I would say that spaces can be used for public events, no problem, but it should not be noted in any types of conversations. The
So-
school is a school, the school is for school events only. Gymnasiums, and yes, if there is a game, for a school game, you can certainly have public come in and watch the school game, but a gymnasium should not be specifically designed or used for public meetings or anything like that.
So I'll push back a little bit in that the newer schools that I've been at, and our high school is used for our recreational basketball program. Those are town programs, not school programs. Recreational, after that, recreational gymnastics, recreational wrestling, we utilize those for, and that's for the public. That shouldn't, I mean, all schools do that.
After you get, everything is completed, you can do anything you want.
So
It just shouldn't necessarily
I
be
think-
documented.
Exactly.
Really?
Well, yeah,
That shocks me.
It is a.
That shocks me, because every single new school that I've been in, that I'm
It's
there
kind
on
of like when
Saturdays
you
and
buy a
Sundays.
new house and you're buying the furniture, you don't put the furniture in the mortgage, you put that in the agreement later.
I know,
And you don't necessarily
I'd
put that
rather
up
ask for
front.
forgiveness than permission.
Right, right.
I'm shocked at this because every new school that I've been in, they have travel basketball on Saturdays and Sundays, and basketball teams are coming from all over the state
Yep.
to play in that gym.
Inga, correct me if I'm wrong, but
I'm
what you're
shocked.
talking about
I'm
is
shocked.
that the design has to be with an educational focus, yeah?
Right.
And the main use of the building should be for educational purposes.
Correct.
Right.
However, you know, we are doing this and we're documenting things and we're putting this program out. The program cannot be considered for any kind of non-school utilized events such as
I think
recreational
there's a
purposes.
benefit, right? It's like, once we build the school and design the school for what we need for educational purposes, there's a benefit to the community to,
Right.
to use that space.
Yeah, the legislature is very clear about that and also about, there's two things, you cannot use it for community kind of recreational purposes and you cannot use it for any like landlord type of rentable spaces.
You
Right,
can't
again.
design it.
You can't design
Correct.
for recess.
Right.
Right, it's
After the fact, you
purpose.
can use it, but you can't design it for
Right.
those
Yep.
reasons.
Right, and I didn't.
And we're not designing
We
it
didn't
for-
do that,
we're
it's
designing
not
it
as
for
if there's a
educational
room
purposes.
here
It's
that's,
Yeah.
you know, a community room
Yeah, like to
or
be
something
rented out.
beyond that, it's just
Yeah.
like this meeting tonight, right, it's a facility that can be used,
Right.
you know, in a kind of reciprocal way from
Yeah.
the school.
It also
In all
gives-
fairness, nothing is designed except for the school purposes.
Schools are
It's
Because
the-
cafeteria is cafeteria for the student.
Right.
Now, tomorrow, perhaps come use it for a town council meeting.
But, you know,
I
then
guess.
this project
School
has,
committee.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, and then this project actually, what's exciting about it is it's net zero energy, so it becomes sort of this beacon and stored for the whole community. It also, you know, it
Yeah.
highly, so there's all those other kinds of factors.
First, actual and net zero school and.
It's like going to a building permit.
Okay, where do we
Okay,
stand with
so
this?
the idea is we were gonna, it's 3 groups, 4 buckets of ideas.
We don't necessarily have to get
Yeah,
together.
we're kinda
Okay.
small, we're small.
Yeah.
We've all been
So-
here a while, but we can just
Yeah,
do
Have
this.
some friends.
But I think it is nice to write ideas down on a Post-it and we'll stick them up on the
Yeah.
wall. We find that it is, you know, it's a kind of a nice way to physically capture what everyone's
Yeah.
thinking, gives everybody a voice and all that sort of thing. It's also a way we can all kind of talk about it afterwards. I think, going back to, I think what Dr. Dubas said at the beginning, now's a nice time as there's been a lot of work done, but we have this sort of moment of reset a little bit, as Ryan has asked us to revisit some of these things. So we wanted to really have everyone have an opportunity to kind of, you know, restate, I guess, what's really the things that people feel are the most important, the most sort of salient elements here, especially as we're looking to look for cost savings or look at some of these enrollment issues. We wanna make sure we're not losing those sort of original ideas that were really important for everyone.
Okay, so I guess if we're, what I'll do is I'll pass around.
Oh, you have cards or what?
I
do you
have, well, I have cards that we would then, you know, just stick on.
Yeah.
And, we'll just, you can take a color for each.
Can we discuss while we write, or?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
could I jump in with
Yeah.
a strength? I believe that's gonna be put into this design. I think in a strength of learning would be not only appropriately sized classrooms for the students, but also the fact that they are more project-based or allow teachers to, yeah, very flexible, not just your traditional classrooms with just the desks and the chalkboard or now whiteboard, smartboard. You know, especially in a district where we are really cognizant that not every student is going to college. We have CTE programs, we now have the machinist program that we're enhancing, and possibly other programs we're bringing in. I think that we are realizing that students learn in all different ways. And I think it's really important that we provide classroom settings where teachers, so I taught Spanish, and it was always great to sit there and have kids learn vocabulary. But it was even more fun to have them do projects and get up and present. And of course, we needed a language lab and all that stuff. But if you can have things like that, and I'm not just gonna say technology, because I don't think technology is the answer to everything. I think it's important nowadays and it's the way of the future. But I also still believe in, you know, traditional books and reading and writing. But I think being able to have a hybrid model, a mixture, a place where you can, if the teacher decides to do a more hands-on lesson or more project-based lessons, I think that's really important. So I think that this design is going to incorporate like classrooms that have more of that flexibility to them.
I'll add on to that. From a facility standpoint, things that work.
Yes.
Things that work, consistently. Windows that open and close. Sinks that don't clog. Air conditioning or HVAC that makes learning comfortable.
That exists.
That exists.
How about the Wi-Fi works?
Yeah, right.
Technology.
Yes.
Well, I think to your point, Megan, too, like, it's important to think about that in the context of the conversation around the use of space, because the size of the classroom matters when it comes to being flexible. The size of the space matters, but, so we've talked a lot, and there was a visual about this earlier, about just the number of classroom spaces per grade level, depending on that. That's something to think about, because the more, if we envision 25 students to a classroom, the ability to do the things you're talking about, which are really, really important, are often predicated on just having enough space to make them happen in a way that is facilitative, if you're in a tight space, it's gonna be a lot harder.
Right.
It's gonna be a lot harder to make those creative lessons happen.
Right, and I'm just thinking kind of more as like a mom, and organizational, functional. I'm thinking about the teachers in their classrooms, and God bless them, they have all these books and things they need, and there's just no space. So if we could also maybe be smart about storage space, right? I'm thinking about when I redesigned my own house, every little nook and cranny we could use, right? Every little cabinet space we could get, things like that.
Now some of the storage space is the cabinets are whiteboards.
Right.
So you get dual use. You have your storage space, but it's also whiteboards.
Right, and
on
to
the
your
outside.
point, like, you don't have wires hanging out everywhere and things like that. The kids are tripping over, and you kind of have to kind of keep maneuvering around that. So, I mean, obviously a new building is going to be a lot nicer and more organized, but if we could take advantage of the space too for teachers, students to store their books, backpack. I mean, I know you can't use backpacks, but and just along those lines. But and then you have more classroom space.
Right. Right. And a lot of that conversation, I think, comes up in the FF&E
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But that's great.
Technology.
So if I were to say one word, flexibility, and just, is surrounding everything you were just saying. Okay, great.
Okay, what do we do with the cards?
So we are sort of changing the way we're doing things a little bit, but we could, and this is gonna get confusing because but we have four of those different things. Do you wanna say that white is for strengths? And then, we can say, blue is for opportunities,
Oh,
and,
there's more cards.
yeah, and then we have pink for, thank you, aspirations.
stole it.
And then yellow for results.
Cool. Pink is aspirations.
Pink is aspirations, yep. And then what we'll do is we'll just, I have tape, and then you can stick your words up on this, on the board here. I'll just drag this up. If anyone's ever seen the store before, often the aspirations and the results are, that's for the future, so you're thinking a little bit about the future, like how do you, thinking about the future, how would you sort of either track success, or when you hear someone say something about their experience, what would lead you to think about success? And then the S and O are what are the strengths, like Megan, you were just talking about, and then O, what are some of the more opportunities? And maybe opportunities could also, that's the spectrum of opportunities. You don't have to specifically answer that question. And then I have these, and then we'll take pictures of this.
Yellow is results.
White is strength, blue is opportunities, yellow is results, pink is aspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And don't worry if the color's got.
This is where we find out how hard it is to be a teacher and come up with a decent lesson plan.
Okay. Is any, oh, one more time.
Yeah. Oh.
Eyes on your own cards. Cheating.
I stopped hearing that wind back there. It's the eye of the storm.
So I'm struggling with the opportunities one, because we're not supposed to be talking about this larger community.
I'm going with it anyway.
Well, you can also, you know, it's an opportunity to, express.
There's also
you know, what's
fields and,
Yeah.
you know, it's not just the
And
building
then
itself, yeah.
the connection to the community with, you know, with the vernacular that's in the design goes back to the historic connection. Ways of, or the data that we're gonna collect from the operations, can be looked at and compared to other buildings, and that can be used as part of the program of the school, the curriculum. Data analysis, collection and analysis.
What was on to last?
What?
I believe
Okay,
that to
okay.
last. So how would you measure data points to track the success?
So maybe it's,
Oh,
the attendance
things are,
rate.
yeah, attendance is something.
Attendance rate, the,
Yeah.
you know, how they do in high school. And maybe
Scoring,
what it is
testing.
results are, we don't know what those data points are yet, but we know that we wanna collect something, and that's a next step, that we, you know, it goes beyond just attendance rates or how one performs.
We've done that like post-occupancy where we, you know, even more kind of feeling of, you know, people's satisfaction with the space, both
Yeah.
teachers and students.
It could be a post-occupant, you could say post-occupancy.
Yeah.
Survey. Oh, wow, Rob. So Rob, I'm gonna give you 4 dots.
So have you ever done anything with the children who are occupying the old school and then occupying the new school?
No, that's a good one. The problem is that usually
Oh,
they're
yeah,
got,
yeah.
they're
Is
off
that
to the
what we're
next,
doing?
you know what I mean?
Well, there's 3 grades, so there's
Yeah.
gotta be a point where it's gonna
Yeah,
overlap
so that's
somewhere.
actually-
Somebody's gonna.
There's some
Grades.
that's
Okay.
tough.
Yeah.
Middle
Nice.
school stuff, you almost,
Yeah,
yeah, you
because-
almost never
You'd have to
get
do it though, the building would be under construction,
I'm
but I
sorry,
know what you mean, right?
Yeah.
It's-
So wait, this
Right,
is.
somebody-
Somebody who's a 6th grader at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs to transition, right?
Right,
Yeah, I
cause
think
it'll
it
be
is.
opened
Yeah.
after a
okay.
school
Thank you
year,
for the
so
clarification.
you'd grab 2.
Yeah,
Technically, you grab
Oh,
6 and 7.
Chris. 4 dots?
that's a good one.
4 dots. They can use it.
Drafting dots.
And then drafting. Oh, yeah, this is great.
Okay, I'm gonna take it back because I
Yeah.
have my students.
Yeah. All right, here you go. Oh my gosh. Oh, Well, you know
Oh,
what?
did I get a
Oh,
bad one?
these tracking notes might be a little old, so let's get these around.
Thank you. I'll do what's right in front of me.
Okay.
Wait.
Yep, Dave?
Everybody's, asking you about your dressing done?
Really?
Oh, are you
Yes.
getting different drafts?
Oh, you want more dots?
I just need two, please.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have with the rest of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep. Oh, you want me to take them out?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Hard, it is, yes.
Something missing, did you find?
Do you know I?
That's what you need to write if you get the
Shape,
There's
table.
skinny people over there.
That's what it
On
is.
the charrette, which is, you know, a art supply or something that is on the car.
Yeah, and the photos are from Paris, when you're, it's the first architecture school, right? And in order for your project to be judged, in order for you to move on to the next class, you had to get your work onto the cart. And the cart came down the hall, down the aisle. And so that's the idea that you're working to get on the next cart. On the charrette, yes. This card is like, yeah, it's kind of a surrealist thing, you know?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Wait a minute, who puts a blue card on a white?
And they wrote that it was supposed to be.
Fail.
And actually, they did it without a drafting job, or they did the drafting job. Oh, it's Dave.
Holland,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Brainstorming.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only vertical one too, he's breaking all the rules.
Yeah, right.
That's a good example. Yeah.
And it's on the online side. Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah, okay.
Door, it was just very small, little kind of thing, just that straight across. I love that. One of our guiding principles. Family. And next to that was the Arab, was a free black document. There's a flyer that was black and white flyer, with a picture of Nixon. And it was the bunch at the flyer that was given out in 1971. So that was there, and then there was from Newsweek magazine after the way, it was just said, "Don't have Nixon." That was pasted right on it. It's the second favorite thing on the wall.
Just stand my back.
Yeah. Where do you?
It's not, it doesn't matter which seat it is, it's just me sitting. It really doesn't matter, it's just like sitting down.
Such a process, 11 buildings. It's 11
Good
buildings.
idea.
One building. It was a whole different, like, thought process.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, you gotta somehow, these kids been all over campus and just boom, 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 boom. And now you gotta tell them, you gotta put in one building, you're not gonna be able to get out of that building. And there's gonna be 4 doors, and, there's no more, I think we had 110 doors in the
all
old,
the buildings?
in all the other school, whatever. So it was like, it's one of these things, how do you keep control of, all these kids going every which way? Where the new school, I think, has actually 4 major,
Well, you'll take them like you
Four
can
major
stand
doors.
up.
Major sides.
So that's what we have.
There's very few entrances, and, you know, it was like a, you know, whole different thing, but like, I mean, everybody in the world had a key. You know, you need to get in on the weekend to go to that. Usually, it's happened on the door was open anyway, you go to the bank, to one of the bank. It was a whole different, you know, try to tell people, okay, they keep, I mean, they can move, they got it, you're gonna go, one building, three levels, and we tried to make the building one half community usage possibly, and one half education, which is kind of what it is. All the bigger areas on the left, and I was in charge of all that stuff.
I want a copy though. Yeah, you can have this. I don't have all of them.
The cafeteria,
Yeah, you can have that.
stuff like that, it's gonna be all your things that you use by community people.
You almost done?
Plans.
Just
Okay, here we go. That's interesting. Saw a picture of you on some, picture of someplace in over beautiful area. And then you're away from your friends. It's a big, beautiful area.
I did not use a line.
It's
under several different things, so.
A couple of printed copies here.
That's exactly right. I know you.
To the holiday.
Oh, I'll.
Flower there, friends, flower there, and.
Rob, are you taking care of posting on the website? So there's a presentation will need to be posted.
I can take care of it.
It's in your inbox.
Okay.
From 10:17 today from Tina.
Got it.
So I don't know, I don't think we're making any changes.
No, we didn't. I'll send it over to you.
Make sure spelling wise
Ready?
everything.
Yeah, Kenny's not done. Should we go ahead?
We'll move on.
Move on, okay.
He's the chair.
All right, so thank you, this is great. We've taken a picture of everything, so we'll, send around the picture. We're also gonna just be able to roll this up and bring it back with us. But I'll just read a couple, just to kind of get everyone, but here, so under strengths, access for all students, learning environments suited for collaboration, integration equals innovation. I like that, there's a formula that says equals innovation. Multiple ways in classroom spaces, so that sounds like flexibility, additional storage for equipment and instruction materials. We also have sustainability and renewable resources, I absolutely love that. More mental health spaces, very important, sort of places to recharge and the like, an opportunity to collaborate. I'll just go to the next, again, just, thinking learning, so this is under aspirations, learning opportunities that were fun, engaging, and memorable. So this is, what would you be so happy to hear someone say in the future? Welcoming an environment where I belonged. That's so nice. I mean, that's, okay. Under results, are the changes benefiting all middle school students in North Kingstown? Are families more attracted to moving to North Kingstown to access education system? Great. So then results, so annual surveys, tracking thoughts. So we could, there's always a post-occupancy type of survey that we could do, or annual surveys, and track and, capture what people were thinking about how they're in the space after it's done. Retention, then these are some other things that could be captured. Retention of staff, that's a great one. You work and you grow your career in an amazing space, you wanna stay there. Community desire to attend. Success of students once in high school. Great. So we'll, it looks like there's a lot of tracking ideas, how we can sort of collect data points or survey results to understand what that, points of success would be. And then, sorry, I'm going a little bit out of order, but opportunities. So, here's one, the net zero effect, sharing the data of geothermal and photovoltaic with science classes at DMS in real time. That's great. So, let's see, opportunities, expansion of technology to other schools and buildings, stronger school identity, affinity, and pride. Nice. Just read one more. Space for teamwork and socialization. There's, all right, one more. Multiple use of spaces to be used by school and community, program space, STEM, arts, music to be utilized by both middle schools often, and then there's one more word, but actually I'm not sure what that word is, but, sorry, also after hours. Yep. So I think that's the other thing is with the large gym, you can have both middle schools compete against each other too, so, but yeah, we can keep, I know it's really not great weather out right now, but these are really wonderful, I can already tell, like, they're really, this is great, so we will share this with everyone. This is, this is really a nice, opportunity for us to have done this. Does anyone have any thoughts or wanna share something that wasn't read, or?
Yeah, I think, real quickly, what Kenny said at the beginning of the meeting is taking advantage of everybody's experience and professionalism around the table. We come from a wide variety of professional jobs, and I think that reflects it. What's
Yes.
important to you or me or her or him or, is reflected in those comments.
I think so too, yeah.
And taking advantage and continue to take advantage of those different purviews of what we have in front of us.
Yeah,
So please speak up, please be
Yeah.
part of it, because you're here for a reason.
no, this was really great, I'm excited to read all these comments when we get back.
Yeah, thanks,
Great, thanks very much. Okay.
Everyone has to see.
Let's see. Number 7 on our list is discussion of CIP projects to commence this summer of 2025. I'll introduce that one real quickly. We are going to appeal to RIDE to start the process of the CIP side of the bond. And to do that, we wanted to have our ducks in a row, so when we appeal to them, they would say, probably, hopefully, okay, well, what'd you have in mind? Boom, we have our list at the ready. And on that list, we identified ADA enhancements, roofing projects, and the big people pleaser, I'll be honest with you, it sounds kind of low rent, but it's the bottle filling station. That's a big deal. That's a big deal to folks out there, it really is. From a convenience standpoint, a health standpoint, every single school nurse out there has almost grabbed me by the collar and said, when are we getting these? Because they know it's out there. And the last one was,
Vestibules, the
thank you, the
security of
secure vestibules.
The roofing, all the roofs, because we
No,
only
no,
talked
well,
about the roofing at East.
The roofing is just starting the roofing project,
Right.
because the roofings start with a design of the roof first.
I'm
And
sorry,
that
East.
particular,
I'm thinking
You're
another
thinking
school,
Cranston.
in Cranston High School East.
um,
They have a project.
the launching into the roofing projects is a very heavy and long lift.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna get anything done roofing wise from a physical standpoint this summer. The projects that I just listed, the ADA, the bottle filling stations, the security enhancements are very, very doable this coming summer. And that's where we wanna try to position ourselves right now, okay? So, yeah,
One more
Inga.
small item is that, so starting the high school roof, but also doing the structural reviews of all the other roofing projects, because that is going to be needed.
Good point.
So
Mhm.
we should just get it done.
Again,
because
that's
it
the
is needed
legwork
for
that we're speaking
everything,
of.
so.
Yes.
At some point soon, the town, and I know we've already started through Kenny, but at some point soon, very soon, the town will need a very rough projection as to what funds you're going to need from July 1, 25 through June 30th, 26. We're preparing a budget, and that budget will reflect any drawdowns on a ban, and so we're just gonna need that relatively soon.
So
And projections, we won't hold you to it, but we do need something.
We had a rough cash flow
I know.
projections that we submitted before, but
Yep.
now based on what we know and the
Exactly.
schedule slightly shifting, I can readjust it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask you a general question, maybe more long-term, and
Please.
maybe it's not appropriate for this discussion per se, but I know that in a meeting previously, a year ago, something like that, RIDE, or somebody had mentioned that RIDE was considering doing facility assessment, FCI assessment of the district, or we were able to go out and get one ourselves for all of the facilities. Is that something that we've ever further looked into?
Yes, so they started it, we haven't
Okay.
received it yet, so
Okay.
they started that back, at the beginning of the school year, it just takes a while to get those reports.
Okay.
They went into all the schools.
Cause that'll be something that for the long term, right, our strategic planning will
Absolutely.
be
Yeah,
really
they did
A
important.
1-year, 5-year, 10-year plan.
Right,
Of how
for,
we're
to help you develop it.
Absolutely.
Because
That would count
without
on
that
it.
research and data,
Yeah, we just gotta
Yeah.
throw darts, I think
Right.
that needs, I think that needs.
that looks a little
Yeah.
messy. Okay,
They
thanks.
should be publishing that, well, not soon, but I'm assuming in 2025 sometimes. I know that they have, I think, completed most of it, but they have to analyze the data too.
They went into all the schools. as they
Right,
started the
and
school year.
part of it is also the demographic study that they've completed as well. But that's more high-level demographic study, it's not as detailed as what we need. However, they did share that with Dr. Juvit today, so we can utilize that and possibly work with the demographer. So, to kind of build onto that and not do a one from scratch. So that was good news, I asked them to share that.
And that was done and paid for by RIDE, and that wasn't a district,
No, so RIDE
Or-
hired a demographer and they did a statewide demographics report, which is going to be part of that facility assessment. All of that's still in the works, so they don't have data for everything that's published. But knowing that we need to do a demographics report, I asked them if I knew that study was completed. So I asked them to share it with us so we can build on to it, because some information might be already available, so why do it again?
sorry, I actually meant the facilities condition assessment, the assessment, the physical assessment is done by RIDE
It's by
through
RIDE.
Jacobs or
It's by-
something?
Yeah,
Right,
they
no,
had
not
it
by Jacobs,
outside.
they hired someone else.
Okay.
I'm not sure what company it was, but they hired something outside the crowd.
Okay, but it wasn't, we didn't have to cover
No.
that. Okay, that's good, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion about number 7, CIP?
My
Sorry.
question, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry, roofing in or out, I guess I'm a little confused, you mentioned it and then it
Sure.
sounded like you took it out.
Starting a roof takes a whole lot of legwork. Like Inga said, a structural assessment. Once you get a structural assessment, then you move on to a design phase. How are you gonna design a new roof? And then the actual physical inspection of the existing roof. And these things take time. So we can start the legwork on what will be our number 1 roof priority at this time. Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong,
High school.
is the high school roof. So that'll be a long process to prepare ourselves to put a new roof on that. So, structural design, structural inspection, design the roof, and then physically do the roof.
And then there was some discussion about infrared surveys to determine if there were salvageable roof areas, so
That's
that
true
would be
too,
part of
yeah,
that too.
that's all part of that, right. And
And
also,
because roofs are over 500,000 typically, it's not something that's under, it will need to undergo the 3 stage 3 submissions as well to RIDE, so the SD, DD and CD, and that takes time as well, so that's why starting it now is good, and RIDE allowed us to do it. I just want to have a list that I can share with them, so hopefully we can agree on
Very good.
the project.
also keeping in mind the size and the complexity of the roof that's on the high school, that's very likely, and the small amount of time we have to work, about 8 to 10 weeks in the summertime, it's very likely that roof will turn into a 2-phase roof, a 2-tranche roof. One summer, work the heck out of it, seal it up, and get ready for the next phase of that roof.
Why the structural inspection? What are
It's
the guys
mandatory.
expecting?
It's
Yeah.
mandated.
What are they
yeah.
expecting to find?
They want to know what kind of structure is under there. Now, we have the as-builts that exist of when the school was built, and they will look at those, but they still want to see exactly what's up there.
They want to make sure that there was an incident a few years back, I'm not gonna say where and when, but when the roof collapsed, so.
Not in North Kingstown.
No, not here, not in here.
We'll say where it
So
wasn't.
They want to make sure that when a roofing project takes place, even though it's a replacement of the roof, they want to make sure that the structural aspect of it is taken care of, and if any repairs have to take place for the structure, that they take place, because, new roof, but bad structure is not a good idea. So this is why it's a mandated thing in all the roofing projects, even if you're replacing just the membrane or anything, have to undergo a structural review.
I remember that building
Thank
is, correct me if I'm wrong, 24 years old? 24 years old, so there's some considerations there. We want to be very sure.
So all of the repair projects on the smaller buildings, the $60 million, that'll all start as soon as possible?
Not all, just the ones that we
The
detail,
ones you
just the
didn't-
ones we
So you
detail.
know, where you have the money for it, and you can get it out the bid and get it.
Bingo. Yep, just get that ball rolling.
Okay.
And that's a big ball to start rolling. So,
So I guess what's the process for prioritizing these projects? And I only say that as a member of the Asset Management Commission, which I know will be very interested in knowing and needs to know,
Sure.
I guess, what projects you're proposing for this
The
summer.
prioritization, I think, was done on that CIP.
So it was,
Uh,
so we have the CIP, so we're going, January, which you might not see the.
16th.
Yeah, we did, so
16th, yeah.
January 16th, we will present to asset
Okay,
management.
Based on what's in the CIP now.
Based on what's in the CIP now. We did have everything with dates. The high school roof was the first roof that we decided on. I'm trying to remember where we had the water bottle filling stations in and what year, but because we are now submitting to RIDE February, not right now, we're looking at what are the things that we can do that won't require a big approval from RIDE with the stage 2, that we can start planning and doing, getting ahead, so we're not falling behind that.
Hey, Inga,
Mm-hmm.
those CIPs, all those projects, that $65 million, is there a time frame that this school district has to have those jobs completed by?
Yeah.
5 years after approval.
5 years after approval. So
Okay.
that may sound like a long time, but with that amount of projects and that amount of work that gets those projects up and running, that's a fast ticking clock.
Mind you, it's 5 years, it's fiscal years, not calendar years, so it's summer to summer.
Okay.
So it's June 1st to June 1st, so you
Gotcha.
have 5 years. In instances where things happen, there is a way to ask for extension. A lot of the COVID projects got extension, but also if something happens, there's always a way to maybe extend by a year, by 6 months, but not more than that.
Just ask nicely.
Ask, it has to be a good reason, a compelling.
In good faith.
Of course. And that's project approval by RIDE, not the bond approval by the town.
Project approval, so in this case, if the official approval from the council comes in May of 25, so you have May of 25 to, June of 25 to June of 26, that's 1 year. You have 5 cycles.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So 2030?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying 2030.
I think that's the first mention of the third. Okay, that was, any further discussion on number 7, CIP? Okay, already any further discussion? Number 8, next steps. I think we're all leaving here with a few to-dos. Jeannie, hopefully you got those down. We can review those. We'll talk later. Okay.
Just watch the tape.
I'm the secretary.
Okay. Well, we'll have some answers hopefully on the CIP for our next meeting. We'll have input from RIDE. Our friends from Peer Crews Eastman will have potentially more ideas and things moved around for our consideration. And again, our consideration is important here, because it's not me as the chairman, it's not you and you as co-chairman, it's everybody's job here. It's everybody's input that's important. So please, as Kenny said in the beginning, remember that, everybody's input, okay?
One question, so I can proceed with that list?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please do.
I mean,
Please
unless
do.
there,
Well, okay,
what I would suggest, right, for that is to let's go back to that agenda, right, that
Mhm.
item. And I would suggest a vote by this committee, because we're putting that suggestion out there,
Okay.
and just to vote on this, that we're all in agreement.
all right. So,
Make a
let
motion
me
then.
word that then. I'm gonna make a motion to take the 4 items from the CIP list, those items being the beginning of the roof, study, the ADA,
Idea of great.
thank you, accessibility, thank you, bottle filling stations, and the security enhancements that are listed on the current CIP, the most recent CIP, be advanced for consideration by RIDE that we start those processes prior to their June approval.
May.
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 I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor of proceeding with those 4 items?
Have to open up for discussion
Oh,
first.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll get used to this.
That's
Yep.
what we will.
Do I need a gavel?
You like
Dangerous.
I think you want one, don't you?
Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, can I take, all in favor of those 4 items being advanced?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? There being none, got that vote, we'll move forward in that regard.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Next meeting date, let's look at our calendar, see what makes sense.
It is, we have it on there, January
Oh, it is.
15th.
January 15th.
So-
We're very limited.
Chris, just let you know, I'll be on business away, 14, 15, 16.
Okay.
So I won't be here, but that's perfectly okay. I'll keep in touch with you, I'll keep in touch with the superintendent, and hopefully Adam and Dante can be here as well. But I'm pretty sure I'll be away 14, 15, 16. It's up in the air, but it looks that way.
Okay, very good. Okay, so that's the 15th, oh, it's right there. Oh, handy.
4:30 or 4:30?
I think it's always 4.
It's always, yeah, it's always
So-
4:30.
Always 4:30?
Yeah. Yeah, we had set these meetings up from the beginning of what they would be for the year.
There being no
to adjourn?
further, thank you, right on. I'll second that.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job, Bernie.
Yeah, he did good.
It's always the quickest one.
Aye.
Season issue.
Yeah, good luck.